It's all that yelling you guys are talking about. Let me try this again. Ladies and gentlemen, we are here at the grave of Paul Revere. What's up with that? This ain't Paul Revere's grave. This is Paul Revere's memorial. Placed here with the same fellows who gave us John Hancock's memorial. This is Paul Revere's grave. Why is Paul Revere's grave so small? Because he was poor? No. Paul Revere's a very wealthy fella. He was, as I said, silversmith, blacksmith, goldsmith, coppersmith, dentist, artist, male model. We'll get to that. He was a very, very wealthy fella. It's because he died as a child? No, of course not. Lived into his 80s. Hold any questions till the end, all right? Because he lived into his 80s. Now, no, the reason why Paul Revere's grave is so small is because that ain't his headstone. That is his footstone. You see, when they buried people in the granary, they buried them wherever there was space. They weren't originally in these nice, neat lines you see here. They were buried wherever there was space. So you had to mark off the grave. It's the beginning and the end. A headstone and a footstone. Does it make sense? Your bed at home is a headboard and footboard. Your bed of eternal rest, you have a headstone and a footstone. Paul Revere's headstone is actually, oh my God, where did it go? It's gone. Stolen years ago. Who would steal Paul Revere's headstone? Somebody with a macabre sense of history? Nope. I actually think it was stolen by somebody up in the North End. You see, Boston's seen waves and waves of immigrants from all different countries. They come into the North End and they get settled up and they create their communities and move on. The Italian community moved in there. They got themselves up. One of the first things they did was start doing what comes naturally, and that's opening restaurants, cooking, inviting people in as a way to make money. They do this using traditional methods of cooking, like brick ovens. To build a brick oven, you need something to cook on. They found that native slate is an excellent conductor of heat. Back then, these burying grounds weren't really well protected. They were kind of neglected. So what these Italians did is they couldn't read whose names were on these things. They spoke Italian. So they show up, they see this neglected, derelict burial ground with these big, huge pre-cut slabs of slate just sticking out of the ground. So they grab them, bring them to the North End, put them in their ovens. So if you go to Regina Pizza or something in the North End, have yourself a nice brick oven pizza, chances are you might be eating it off the back of Paul Revere's gravestone. Yeah, I know. Now, what can I tell you here about Paul Revere? Most of you know about the Midnight Ride of Paul Revere, right? All right, listen, my children, you shall hear the Midnight Ride of Paul Revere, right, all that stuff. All right, that's actually a poem written by a fellow by the name of Henry Wadsworth Longfellow. Now, there are some historical inaccuracies in that poem, and I really wouldn't be doing my job if I didn't take you through it and tell you what they are. Parts of that poem you want to avoid as historical fact are all of it! That poem is nonsense. Paul Revere didn't ride through the streets shouting the British are coming. Why? Because they're all British. Well done, right there. Yes, indeed, that'd be like me walking down the street going, the Americans are coming, the Americans are coming. People look at me like I was nuts. Second thing I did, Paul Revere did not ride the entire way. Paul Revere actually got into a boat, rode across the Charles River, got a horse over there. How many riders were there that night, do we know? 3, add 60 that we know of. Probably more. They came from all different directions. You got to realize, this is important. This march of these soldiers towards Lexington and Concord, this is an act of war. You're not going to keep that to yourself. You send out riders in all different directions. Lexington, Concord, yeah, but also places like Springfield, Worcester, Hartford, Providence, New Haven, Albany, New York, Philadelphia. Riders went off in all different directions. Now you mentioned 3. You're probably thinking of 3, that 2 of the ones who started here in Boston, 1 joins them later. There are 2 riders who left from Boston proper. One of them was Paul Revere. The other was a fellow by the name of William Dawes. As I said, Paul Revere gets in a boat, rows across the river, gets onto a horse, heads up towards Lexington. Dawes takes the land route, just in case Revere were captured. In order to go the land route, he's got to go over a very thin stretch of land called the Boston Neck, which is guarded by British troops. As he's approaching the Boston Neck, the British troops stop. They point their guns at him. They say, "Who are you? Where are you going?" Dawes throws his arms in the air. He goes, "I'm drunk. I'm going to visit my mom." And they let him go. See, I can't make this stuff up. They let him go. He continues on, rides around, meets up with Revere. They make it to Lexington. They're going there because that happens to be where John Hancock and Samuel Adams are hiding out. They spread the word. When they hear this, Samuel Adams wants to get out of town right away. John Hancock don't. John Hancock wants to wait a while. The reason John Hancock wants to wait is because John Hancock has just ordered dinner. He just ordered the largest goose in the yard be killed, and he don't want to seem like an ingracious guest. And for the truth, they actually did stick around and have the meal. Now, Revere and Dawes didn't want to stick around. They were afraid their goose would be cooked. So they decided to head out of town. On the way out of town, they run into another fellow, your number 3, Dr. Samuel Prescott. Prescott's a young fellow. He's a member of the Sons of Liberty. They recognize him as well. They say, "Dr. Prescott, How would you like to join us on a mission that would mean certain death if we're captured, make you a hero and a legend, and contribute to the birth of a nation? Prescott says, that sounds cool, hops on a horse, and the three of them go off into the woods. Along the way, all three are again stopped by British troops. Samuel Prescott spurs on his horse, goes over the wall, down an embankment, through a stream into the woods, and gets away. William Dawes spurs on his horse, goes over a stone wall, down an embankment, falls off his horse, hits his head, knocks himself out, wakes up in a bush the next morning wondering what happened. Paul Revere gallantly looks at these soldiers, throws his arms in the air, and he goes, I surrender! And they arrest him, and they take him into custody. They actually leave him by the side of the road as the soldiers are marching on. They figure they got more important things to do than deal with a messenger. The fellow who actually finished the midnight ride as we know it and warned the Minutemen that the troops are on their way was Dr. Samuel Prescott. He's the one who made it out there, told them the troops were coming so they could sound the alarm and get the secret store of weapons out of there. So why does Revere get all the credit? In order to tell you that, I got to go back to that poem by Henry Wadsworth Longfellow. See, Longfellow was in love. He was in love with a beautiful young woman. This beautiful young woman, madly in love with Longfellow. This young woman's mother was not. This young woman's mother did not want her daughter growing up to marry a full-time poet. Probably because full-time poets earned about as much a year then as they do now. There's only so much work you can get with a bachelor's in English. So Longfellow writes this poem, and he dedicates it to what he hopes will be his future mother-in-law. Why? Because she is directly related to Paul Revere. If she had been related to William Dawes, I guarantee we now all know the Midnight Rider, William Dawes. If she was related to Prescott, we probably all know the Midnight Rider, William Prescott. But no, she was related to Revere. That is who he wrote the poem about, and it must have worked because she granted her permission. The two of them got married and lived a life of happy artistic poverty ever after. Now, are there any questions? Yes.